You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What's up, the internet? This is Hot Takes. I'm producer Kyle, where we're going to talk about my hot takes on issues of the day, including but not limited to Greg Berlanti signing a longer deal with Warner Brothers for television, the HBO Amazon deal that just happened, some more Zack Snyder garbage that we're going to talk about because the Zack Snyder cult is at it again, and anything else you might get into because you can call in and be on the show. Last week we had a guy call in and talk about spaghetti and meatballs, and we got into that topic, so it's all up for grabs tonight. So this is Hot Takes. What's up, the internet? Welcome into Hot Takes. I am, as always, producer Kyle. This is The Experience. What's up, Mr. Towers? What's up, Lars, man? What's up, gang? If you're here, I want to give a shout out right here at the top of the show to Andrew Stanton for his song Emerald Weekend. That's our opening song. It's our theme song. It's been my theme song for years. Andrew's a good friend and a good dude. And I want to welcome you into the show. So, as you know, if you've watched the show before, this show is Jay. I'm already doing it, man. We talked about that. I'm already doing it. Anyway, I got a new microphone, and the instincts are to play with the microphone, and it's going to be hard for me because I want to play with my microphone. Anyway, if you've watched the show before, you know this is your chance to call in and be on the air here on The Experience. You can do that by calling 567-318-6507. That's 567-318-6507. Lars Man called in last week. We talked about his getting back into reading comics. It was a good time. Tonight I have some topics to talk about that I want to kind of throw at y'all. But if you have stuff you want to talk about, give me a call. Like, this show is much better when y'all call me and we can talk about stuff. And then you can hear my silky smooth voice through my new pretty microphone. I swear I'm going to get less conceited about this as time goes on. But right now, it just looks so shiny. And I got my art in the background. Do you guys want to take a tour of my art before we get started? We can do that if you'd want. But so my first topic for tonight really is the big news out of Warner Brothers Television today, which is that Arrowverse co-creator Greg Berlanti has signed a extension and reconfiguration of his contract with them. So the old way that this thing was structured. Okay, Lars Man is saying yes, he wants a tour of the art. Okay. So we'll start here, and I don't have my good camera, so it's going to be tough. This is Jim Starlin. This is Thanos vs. Hulk, issue 1, page 1. I got that off the original Art Experience show with Nick. This is the Walking Dead 150 blank sketch cover. This is art by John Marroquin and Chris Sanchez. Chris is out of the industry now, but John Marroquin is still around. This is The Walking Dead. If you can't really tell, if you can't really see it, these are zombie luchadors eating each other in the ring on a Walking Dead. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters. This is Gavin Smith. This issue came out right after they killed Leonardo. So the Ghostbusters are busting the ghost. This is a Judge Dredd #1, also done by Gavin Smith. This is maybe my favorite piece of art I own, and I'm going to try and get out of the way here. This is Jughead number 30, page 1. This is The Burger That Saved the World, which is also my personal philosophy on food consumption. On this side over here, We have a G.I. Joe and the Dark Knight DK3 Master Race blank covers. Both of these are by Seth the Moose, who is the person I have the most art by. It's Seth the Moose, then it's Scoop McMahon. So Seth has done things like Floppy Cop and Tales of Mystery, and he's got a book that will be on Kickstarter soon with Bob Sally called Father Figure. Yeah, me too, Lars, man. You should I will film it and show it to you guys next week. I have art on all of the walls of my office and on my outer office. I'll show you guys next week. But anyway, so this is Seth. He did both of these. These are two Tom Richmond pieces. Ignore the glare from the screen there. So this is Jughead #1. This is Jughead is Alfred E. Newman, obviously. The Flash is Alfred E. Newman. And then I have these two, and I have two more pieces that I'm waiting on to get framed that go right here. These are 2000 AD pages that I got on the original art experience back when Will Gabrielle was still joining us. So back in the early days of that show. So I have all of my art with a couple of exceptions framed and hung. I know a lot of guys like to put their art in sleeves and put it away. I like to look at it. On this side of me, I've got some Ghostbusters, the animated series animation cells. I've got a Nova as Alfred E. Newman. I've got John Romita Batman, Wonder Man. I've got some Jam pieces, some other stuff. I've got some Thor pages on this side, all this kind of stuff. Ship, I got 4 pages out of one book, buddy, on that 2000 AD. So that's a tour of the art that's behind me. I have more art in the outer office that I could show you guys. I've got more art around the office. And I probably have a short box full of sketch covers that aren't up. And 3 or 4 full pages like this that are not up, that need to put up when I get more frames. Or can get them framed. The Romita Spider-Man stuff is at the framers. I'm paying that to be professionally framed because I want the extra protection on that deal. Okay. So back to the topics at hand now that we've had a tour of my art. Greg Berlanti, co-creator of the Arrowverse, is back or has been extended at DC or at Warner Brothers. Ship. Richard is saying that he did just get his misspelled Gaiman autograph. I have one as well on one of the 24-hour comics books he did. I also have one on The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Yeah. Ocean at the End of the Lane. I'm hoping to get my Neverwhere signed soon. Anyway. So the way his contract worked before, and this is what's interesting with Greg Berlanti, is that it used to be related to how many shows he delivered. That's why there were like 15 shows on the air from him. And they're making all of these DC shows because he was getting paid based on how many episodes he delivered. Now the contract is structured more like a traditional television contract, where it's less of that and more of ratings related and things like that are dictating his deal. And the reason that I think this is interesting is twofold. One, it's one of the biggest deals in television history in terms of like the end result. This is going to be a deal that all other television contracts are structured upon going out. Like if you're going to give a production company an overall deal, it's going to have to match up to this based on the expectations. So it's interesting to see kind of the deal here. Greg Berlanti holds the record for the most scripted originals on the air or in the works at the same time. And his deal has now stretched an additional 4 years. When you think about the shows that Berlanti had on the air, which are Arrow, The Flash, Titans, Doom Patrol, but he also had other shows like The Flight Attendant and You on Netflix and other stuff. He's making content that's not just superhero related. So it's interesting to see that Warner Brothers is taking an interest in these non-superhero shows from him. even though that's been so much of what he's done. And so my hot take on this, while it's kind of a lukewarm take, is that I think it's good that they're extending Greg Berlanti 3 years. There's this thing you talk about in politics, and I'm not going to get into politics, but there's this idea in politics that you want institutional memory. So when one administration leaves, the next administration tries to keep some people around. And while they may move into other positions, or they may go from having power to not having power, or they may be people that are not powerful people in politics. Like it might be secretaries and caterers and chefs and things who know how things work. One of my favorite stories is that from the Bush administration into the Obama administration, they kept a chef because that chef knew the food allergies of so many dignitaries that would be coming in to visit. It was worth it to keep him. Even if he wasn't the Obama's favorite chef, he knew enough that when they had a state dinner, he was the guy they went to. James Gunn and Peter Safran have this same problem. They're a new administration coming into a new role in this world. And they, as it were going to have very little institutional memory. Justice League was a mess and continues to be a mess. And I will talk about that later. Because we can't go a week without talking about this stuff. So many of these things were already a mess that they didn't want to keep people around. And there weren't people to keep around. You have, help me out here, Jay. Who's the name of the guy who did the Batmans? And who did the Joker?
The name of who did, one was Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips and
Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, yes. Yeah. Thank you. You have Todd Phillips and Matt Reeves, but they're kind of off in their own little corner of the universe playing. You need to keep institutional memories around because otherwise you lose all the pre-known things. All the experience goes away. So I think extending Greg Berlanti makes a lot of sense. And I think what's interesting is now that there's a new regime, will you see choices like what I've always said, Grant Gustin should be the Flash in all universes, movies and TV. Right? Will you see the actors who are in Superman and Lois, or who are in, he's developing a Green Lantern show? Will that actor cross over into the regular DC universe? And I think it's interesting when you have some institutional memory and somebody new coming in, seeing how they mesh, seeing how they work together. And I think it's a good thing that Greg Berlanti is sticking around with Warner Brothers. I really do. I think it will let them transition into a new phase of the television shows that is much stronger because he'll work with Gunn and Safran rather than having everything else be just from whoever makes it. I think it's a smart decision. All right, we're going to take our first break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to get into a couple of we're going to get into a couple of little more interesting topics, in my opinion, after the break. But first, I want to remind you guys, I am wearing the Experience t-shirt. The Experience t-shirt. It's a t-shirt that says The Experience on it. You can get that over at our merch store. It's on theexplive.com. THEEXPLIVE.com. You can order these shirts. You can order tons of great stuff. We have our New Year, New Comics t-shirt that's out right now. We're launching our Rex Cap t-shirts Wednesday. So if you're a fan of that show and you want a Rex Cap t-shirt or a Recap Rex t-shirt, you can totally get them starting Wednesday, assuming Rex approves the designs. I have to check on that one. But they're available over on the XP store. And guys, and I tell you this, we get a little bit of money from these. So it helps us keep things going. Anytime we ask you to make a purchase or buy something from the Experience, we ask you to join the Experience membership. we ask you to do this kind of stuff, it's not because we're getting rich on any of it. I promise. It's because it helps us keep the channel going. Our goal is to keep bringing you great content, but it all costs a lot of money. I have to pay Jay to sit here and listen to me ramble. And I'll be honest, the dude has to get hazard pay for it because I've met me. So anytime we ask you to make a purchase, just know that when you do that, you're helping us keep the experience going. And it's not going for things like new microphones. I promise. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the cult of Zack Snyder a little bit more. And Amazon and HBO Max are getting into bed together again. We'll be right back. You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
You just finished the last episode of your favorite new show, and you just have to talk about it. But all your friends are ghosting you because of that incident last week at the buffet. Oh, you know the one. What you did to that chowder. Ugh. Keeps me up at night. So what do? Join writer Dan Wickline as he breaks down all your favorite pop culture media. Whether it's a review of the latest nerdy TV show or a dive back into the history of your favorite comic characters, Dan's ready to discuss all the hottest topics live. Join the conversation as Dan live streams Tuesday through Thursday at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. The Dan Wickline Show on The Experience, comic culture and sales.
Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me. What's up, the internet? Welcome back to Hot Takes here on the EXP. I am producer Kyle, and I want to tell you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m., 2 p.m. Pacific, the Dan Wickline Show is back. I don't know what Dan's going to be talking about. Jay, has Dan told you what he's going to be talking about?
Not at all.
All right. I bet Dan doesn't quite know yet. But he will be back tomorrow, and then tomorrow following that, at 6 p.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, Jay and I will be joining Dan for In Stores this week. We talk about comic books that are in stores this week. And I can tell you that on Wednesday, Dan will have Luna Knight on the air. Luna is a avid 40K player and is actually a Twitch streamer who does figure painting, to talk to Dan about figure painting and army building and stuff as Dan learns more about Warhammer 40K. So you're going to want to tune in for that one. Obviously, we have other great shows on the Experience tomorrow with Minute to Skim It, which will be, I think it's a Liam and Shanice week, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. But there'll be Minute to Skim It, and then Mint Hunter Comics, and then Country Roads Comics. All tomorrow. We'll have all of our shows tomorrow. Then Wednesday, we'll have the Dan Wickline Show back with Rex and John, and the Space and Pop Go the Writers, and Honest Henri from Illinois, and all of that kind of stuff. That's a joke that I don't think anybody here knows, the Honest Henri joke. Remind Henri to tell you about Honest Henri. You have to spell them both with O's. All right. So I promised that I was going to talk about a topic that we can't seem to go a week without talking about, because this guy just keeps getting his name in the stupid news. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys, yes, that you can call in at any time and talk to me. 567-318-6507, 567-318-6507, to give me your hot takes on stuff. Are any of you following what's happening in Brazil politically? I'm guessing you're not, because it's kind of a weird thing to ask on a show like this. But the people of Brazil are acting like Zack Snyder fans, which is to say that they're being sore losers, as it were. There is a small but vocal faction in Brazil who are unhappy with the election they had there and have chosen to refuse to recognize the new government. Very much the same way that Zack Snyder fans are refusing to admit that Zack Snyder is gone from the DC universe and refusing to recognize James Gunn and Peter Safran. What up, Ron Shepard? Welcome into the show. Ron, you can see my CCA collection, buddy, or some of it. Very little bit. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my CCAs in the background here. Anyway, today there was a story. The vocal fan base that Zack Snyder has cultivated during his time at DCU have not given up on the filmmaker's superhero franchise. And today, the hashtag "Sell Snyderverse to Netflix" trended on Twitter. You're telling me you want them to sell Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash to Netflix? The level of just plain stupid that this crowd has gotten to is unbelievable to me. Last week, I got all worked up because James Gunn couldn't send well wishes to Jeremy Renner without people trying to get him fired or bringing this stuff up. This week, they're going, you know what? We got a better option. Sell it to somebody else. It's like the people who are standing in Lincoln Square in Washington, D.C. going, not my president. What? If you're unhappy, just don't go to the movies. Has anybody said to these people, stay home? We don't need you. If you're so up in the Zack Snyderverse, we have our first caller of the evening. Lars, man.
Kyle, man, you got me thinking here, brother.
Yeah, what I got you thinking?
Well, I mean, you unleashed it all, man, because I got to tell you, that whole rhetoric around not my president stuff drives me insane.
Right. I don't really want to get into politics, you know that, but it's the same mentality, right? It's not my DC, not my Spider-Man, not my Batman, whatever. And I've been guilty of it, right? You've seen me do it, but it's like, there we go.
I'm not sure if your internet's frozen, but I can tell you, man, regardless of who I vote for or, who happens to be, piloting the helm of my favorite movie franchise, I got to give that stuff a chance, before I just absolutely shut it down. It just drives me a little bit nuts.
Right.
How many people just totally close themselves off from the world and from common sense. And it's not just the left, it's not just the right, but it is more DC than Marvel. I got to say that.
Right. Like that's the one thing that I think we can all agree on, is that fandom is more entrenched than politics. Right? We will get butthurt for longer than any political party ever has, right? I still hold grudges about when they got rid of Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man.
I do too, and I got to tell you this. I would. One of the biggest moments for me, in a movie in the last couple of years was just seeing my Spider-Man back on the screen. But you know what? I was able to just kind of shrug that off and just enjoy the other ones for what they were. And I mean, people can say what they want about Lucas's episode 1 whenever he goes, to kind of tell the story he wanted to tell. But the guy couldn't win. If he had done Godfather 2, everybody would have panned it, I think.
Right. And that's exactly it. I just had this conversation with somebody about how they're saying how Andor is so good and how after Boba Fett and, what was the other one that came out? Obi-Wan, that they didn't think there was any hope in the Star Wars universe. And I go, could those shows have been successful if we wanted them to be? Or does everything have to live up to the last 3 minutes of Mandalorian season 2? Right.
Right. No, that's hard to live up to. But for me, I didn't care for Andor as much as I cared for the other series. It was a darker, different look. It just, to me, didn't feel as much like the Star Wars universe, but I still dug it. We've had these debates on the EXP back and forth, in the chats, going, hey, thank God we just happen to live in a time where we at least have this content. Because I grew up in the 70s and the 80s where your comic book content was few, far between, and terrible outside of the first Batman movie.
Right. I mean, if you weren't into the 66 Batman show, you got nothing. Yeah.
Well, I know. And there's
Red Brown as Captain America, maybe.
Yeah. So none of that really worked for me. And what they tried to do with Spider-Man was just so terrible that you were almost glad that they stopped trying there for a while. Yeah, they could only win with animation.
Right. It reminds me of that Jeff Foxworthy bit. I grew up in a time when we got 3 channels. If the president was on, your night was ruined.
That's right.
You had to go up and turn the knob. And if you turned the knob wrong, you had to stand there with your hand on the antenna and go like this. It's people don't think I'm old enough to have had a rabbit ears. I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Oh my. I remember the first cable box that I ever had. I remember the first remote control my family had, which, by the way, was wired to the television.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, I know. I remember all those things. Of course, because my grandparents are late bloomers and refuse to accept technology. My grandpa's like, "Where's the wires? You don't need them." Oh, that's some witchcraft
exactly.
There. But no, that's the thing is we live in a time, and this is kind of where I was going. Is we live in a time where we have options, right? Like if I don't want to see Zack Snyder movies, which I generally don't, I just can watch something else, right? If I don't want to see Tom Holland as Spider-Man, I can watch the Tobey Maguire movies because they're available to me. Like you're not hoping that maybe HBO runs them once every 6 years. Right, exactly. That was how it was when I was little with Star Wars. You had to wait till, what was it, the 4th of July or Labor Day or whatever to watch them on TNT. And then you had to sit there with the remote and record it and then hit pause when the commercials came on and then hit pause again, to not have to record the commercials on the VHS tapes. Like, oh, absolutely. And remember, about 50% of the runtime, well, maybe not 50%. I know there's some guidelines, but the commercials that they ran on TBS during those marathons, it just, you were in for a full day just to try and watch 3 movies. 3 movies takes 27 hours to watch. Yes. It's I remember, man. And it's, it's one of those things is that those movies are, I think they're considered to be written in 2-hour format. I think. This is me. I'm going to get inside television on everyone for a second. Those movies are written in 2-hour format. They would take those movies and stretch them to 3-hour format. Because then they could do all 3 movies. They could do all 3 movies in a 12-hour day part. So then at night, they could play a basketball game or whatever, and they wouldn't have to interrupt their infomercials in the morning so that they could keep their revenue the same while playing only one piece of content. It's really wild when you really get to know that kind of stuff. But like I said, that was where I was headed, Lars, man, and I appreciate your call and you bringing this up, right? We have options. So
Absolutely, grab your option, but for stuff that you may not think is your thing, or you may not be 100% supportive, sometimes you got to give stuff just a little bit of room to breathe, Anyway, I'm on like my third ride because, there weren't enough name drops in tonight's shows earlier. So I'm a little slow getting fired up for the evening. But, brother, love the show, man. Glad you're doing it. And, Ron, some of you other guys that are out there in the chat, dial in, man. I'd love to hear you talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ron, when we have our art show, I'm sure Ron will call in. All
right.
Well, man.
Thank you, Kyle.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you to Lars, man, for calling in. But that's where we're going with this, right? Is we got options. There are other things you can watch. You can watch the EXP rather than watch the non-Zack Snyder DC if you really want. I will go out in my backyard and make superhero movies if that's what it gets to get this to go away. They might be real bad superhero movies, but I'll make them. The thing I can't figure with this is what the unwillingness is to accept change. In a world where the comics are rebooted every couple of years. Every couple of years we get a new number one. Right? Every couple of from the smaller publishers, every 6 months we get a new miniseries, how often do we get new Red Sonja? How often do we get new some of these characters that only ever live in miniseries? We are used to restarting. We're used to stopping a story and going from the beginning again. These Batman, Superman, and the Flash, who've gotten to 1,000 issues in Batman and Detective Comics and then the Flash, are such the outer rim, right? They're not the norm in the business anymore. How do we as nerds not understand the idea of parody? The idea of restarting, the idea of new concepts or new ideas or starting over. I don't understand that. If you can explain it to me, give me a call, 567-318-6507, 567-318-6507. Mr. Towers, thank you for being here. I always appreciate seeing you. And I always appreciate seeing you on the Fat Jack show. Means a lot to me. I'm not even on the show. I just, sit back here and watch Brendan make a fool of himself. But I really do appreciate seeing you there all the time. All right. So something else, and this is a story that I find also interesting, and I don't have a lot of details because there haven't been releases yet. There haven't been, the financials haven't come out for sure. But in September of 2021, Prime Video channels separated from HBO Max. And the estimation was that Prime Video would lose 5 million subscribers. Or not, yeah, would lose 5 million subscribers that would go directly to HBO Max. Because HBO Max then general manager Andy Forssell said it's important for us to own the customer. If the viewer is in the app, we can tailor the homepage to them. We can tailor what we show them next. We can respond to that in real time. Just over a year and one merger later, and I'm reading directly from Variety here, HBO Max has returned to Prime Video channels this streamer announced Tuesday. The reversal is indicative not just of a strategic shift under a new corporate parent, but in the changing direct-to-consumer landscape. So here's my question. Do you subscribe to subscriptions under your big streaming subscriptions? I'll give you an example. I subscribe to Paramount Plus, and in order to watch Tulsa King, which I love, and my friend Jay Adams was on the last episode. I'm hoping to have Jay on the air here eventually at the experience. If for no other reason than he's a trained stuntman, and I can get him to jump off of things. I subscribe to Stars through Paramount Plus. I subscribe to Paramount Plus through Apple TV. In a world that's increasingly concerned with the streaming wars, who's winning what stream, who's watching what platform, do you care about where your subscriptions come from or just about the content you get to watch? I don't really care who gets my money so much as I get to watch my show. I have one of my subscriptions is the Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus bundle. I don't really care who gets my $9.99 a month, as long as I get to watch my shows. And I think that in a world that's increasingly, all right, here we go. Lars Man has several subs under Prime. Paramount, Stars, Epix, and a few others. Right. I have BritBox under my Prime, so I can watch my BBC shows. If you think I'm not watching Mrs. Brown Boys and 8 out of 10 Cats, you're wrong. But I don't really care who gets my money so long as I get my content, right? So that's my question: is the streaming wars something that's only being played out in boardrooms of major media conglomerates, or is it something that you think about? Verizon still pays my Disney Plus bundle. Praise Jesus. I appreciate that too. I get Apple TV for free from T-Mobile, but then I pay Apple TV for Paramount Plus. Figure out that one. But yeah, are the streaming wars really being fought? Is there really such a thing? Or is it just boardroom mumbo jumbo of moving around a few dollars here and there? I think that we're going to increasingly see as time goes on, this move away from the idea that streaming is an alternative to cable. I think we're going to see this idea that streaming is just the way we consume our media. We were talking to Brainy earlier on Nerd News Now, which you'll be able to see on Sunday here on The Experience. And he talked about how many music streaming services he has. And how he doesn't really buy physical media anymore, except when his daughter goes to buy the Taylor Swift record. So there's not really concern about the streaming wars in terms of music. Excuse me. People get what they get. People have score Tidal or, Pandora or YouTube Plus or one of those that handles their music streaming. Why do we look at television and movie streaming differently? Is it because we're used to conglomerization of those things? Is it because we're used to having to pay cable companies? Or is it something else? I mean, you tell me. 567-318-6507. 567-318-6507. And tell me, how do you feel about the streaming wars? Is it a real thing? Or are they just making it up to get you to pick sides? I'll tell you, I can't tell you the last time I logged into Netflix, but somehow they win. I can't tell you the last time I logged into, I can't tell you the last time I logged into Disney Plus, except to go watch something very specific. I don't go there to look for something to watch. That's what I have Peacock and HBO Max for. That's what I have Paramount Plus for. So many of these streaming services we get for something specific. So what happens when that something specific is the only reason we go to that streaming service? Like the only reason we turn on ESPN is to watch SportsCenter. Or the only reason we turn on Cozy TV is to watch late night Las Vegas reruns so that you can see James Caan's worst acting job. It's a very specific thing I just let you guys into in my life. Throwing that one out there. But I think the idea of the war for the viewer is largely fabricated. I think the viewer wants to watch what it wants to watch. And it's a testament to why you guys turn into The Experience, right? You want to watch what you want to watch. If you didn't want to watch what we have to offer on the experience, you would go somewhere else. I'm on at the same time as Rockin' Robbie right now, who is reviewing one of my favorite movies ever. I want to go watch that. So when I get off work tonight, I'm going to go watch his stream. Shout out to Rockin' Robbie and Pop Culture Philosophers. You should go check out his stream tonight. He's reviewing They Live, featuring the fabulous Rowdy Roddy Piper. Hot Rod, man, he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. One of my favorite things to go back and watch, if you've never seen the clip of him on Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, where he pulls a full Leslie Knope and drops his pants right in the middle of the show. It's him and Sting and a couple of other people. Oh, it's great. So go watch Robbie's stream after we're done here. Right. It's a great movie. True, the voice of Goliath himself, Keith David. Keith David is so good in so many things. Just throwing that one out there. What was I just watching him in? I'm here to chew gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of gum. Right. It's I just was watching Keith David's turn on Community. He's so good in that. But no, I have this idea in my brain that we're being told we have to pick the things we want to watch on the platforms we want to watch only as a methodology to try and own the viewer. Right? HBO Max said it themselves. It's important for us to own the customer. I don't want to be owned in terms of what I want to watch. That's why I stopped watching Netflix. They had no idea. You watch one episode of the Great British Baking Show, and it completely throws off your entire Netflix algorithm. Now, I love the Great British Baking Show, but that doesn't mean I don't love action movies and horror movies. So why all of a sudden I was getting every Hallmark movie on the planet on that platform, I have no idea. But that's why I stopped watching. They tried to own the customer and tell me what I was interested in. You don't know what I'm interested in. So I want us all to think about the streaming war a little bit differently. It really is just a war to own your information as opposed to a war of who's got the best content. Speaking of the best content, Thomas R. Bishop, what's up? Guys, the EXP has new content coming. SketchUp with Mel and Mog launches the 19th of January. SketchUp with Mel and Mog will be a live art show. So if you saw what they did during our EXP Expo shows, which it's the watch spur of the moment that they hate. It's true, Chris Browning. But Mel and Mog do a great show where they do a live drawing right in front of you on the show, and you can bid on it during the show. And we're going to have guests on the show who are also drawing and whose art you can also buy. And it'll be an interview, and it'll be talking, and it's this whole idea of the conversations that if you've ever been to a drink and draw, if you've ever watched a bunch of artists have dinner together and they're all sitting around with their nose in their sketchbooks talking about art and making art, except that now you get to sit in. Now you get to watch it. SketchUp with Mel and Mog launches the 19th. Guests to be announced very, very soon. So we're going to take our second break. We will be right back after these messages on the experience. If something says buy something or subscribe to something and you haven't, go do it. It helps us keep our jobs. Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
I'm Al Simpson. I do a comic called Vampires in New Jersey, and you're watching me on The Experience.
What's up, the internet? Welcome back. This is Hot Takes here on The Experience. Now, I'm going to talk about something here in a second, and I'm going to use this section to promote our social media. Guys, Dan Wickline does our social media. Did you notice that everything's always spelled right? That's how you know it's not me doing it. Dan does our social media. He does a great job of it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. He's doing TikTok videos. He's posting stuff on YouTube Shorts. He's doing all kinds of stuff to let you know what we have coming up. And so if you don't follow us on all the platforms, hit the follow button. If you're not on the platforms, I get that. Some of them are more user-friendly than others. Some of them are more musky than others. Some of them are Hive, and they're trying. So follow us everywhere you can follow us. Everywhere you are, we are as well. If we're not someplace, somebody send me an email and let me know where we're not so that we can be there. Because if we can't get the word out to you about what we're doing, then how will you ever know what we're doing? That was supposed to be a parody of the joke, if no one ever died, where would you park? But I did a bad job of it. All right. So when I was young, in order to find out what celebrities were doing, you had to buy one of those magazines that when you picked it up off the shelf, people looked at you funny. You know, the Insider, the Inquirer, whatever. Tabloid magazines. But Instagram does that for us now. And it's great. So Peter Safran, the new head of DC Studios, went skiing on vacation, and his wife posted photos of the people they went with. And one of those people is Shazam, aka Zachary Levi. And so there's these photos of them like on the ski lift and snowboarding together. And is like their food and Peter Safran's wife and Zachary Levi's girlfriend and all these people hanging out together. And it used to be that you wouldn't have known where an actor came down on some of the hot button political issues inside his own company, aka James Gunn and Peter Safran, and what they're doing in the next wave. But now you do. Because they go skiing together and Instagram tells us. I just thought that was a funny story. Like, it's like Zachary Levi coming out talking about defending James Gunn, going, he understands comic book guys. He understands world building. He understands how to do it, how to do right by the canon and also by the characters and also by the audience. I don't know, man. Like, I love the idea of you could instantly know where people come down because Instagram tells you. But I also love the idea of knowing that Zachary Levi is maybe not a great snowboarder. Right? Like, I think that's funny. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? What's the role of social media in all of this? Do you trust it when somebody says something on there about their future plans in terms of roles they're taking or movies or shows they're making? Or do you take it with a grain of salt and be like, well, anyone can lie on social media. On social media, I only weigh 110 pounds. I have a six-pack. What the people on social media don't know is that I have a six-pack of Diet Mountain Dew out there is what I'm talking about. Right? Like, what role does social media play in all this? Do you have a thought on Hollywood social media, Hollywood Twitter, Hollywood Instagram? 567-318-6507. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show here. 567-318-6507. I wanted to mention that, and then I wanted to there's another story I wanted to mention just briefly. In the 1968 adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, some gross stuff happened, and the actors are suing the studio for putting this out, basically. And I don't want to get into what's really gross that happened or any of the fallout from that. That's not important. My question is, and what I wonder is, what's the statute of limitations on something like that? Right? Like, if something, should we be dredging up these movies that happened in 1967 or 1968? I'm not in any way wanting to diminish how these actors feel. Lars Man has a comment on the social media thing. I'll come back to it right here in just a second. I don't want to diminish at all how these actors feel. If they feel like they were mistreated, they should absolutely seek justice on that, and they should absolutely go for it. But, like, does that affect the way you watch Romeo and Juliet? If you know that an actor in a movie was unhappy with the way they were treated while making that movie, does that change the way you watch the movie? If you knew that Drew Barrymore was like super traumatized by the way they treated E.T. at the end of E.T., would that affect the way you watched E.T.? Or that, the fact that actors from Star Wars, have said that the fandom has been hard on them, and so they don't want to act anymore. Does that affect your viewing of those movies? Let me know. Throw it in the comments. Last Tango in Paris is an example. Yes, Last Tango in Paris is an example of that. All right, Larsman says, I like social media for following my favorite musicians. Back in the day, all you knew was printed on the album sleeve CD or album/CD sleeve. It's true, Larsman. There's a great story. Somebody asked Bruce Springsteen what the lyrics to Thunder Road were, because they claim he's been singing one thing and the liner notes say another thing and covers say a different thing and karaoke says a different thing, and they want to know what it was. And so Springsteen says, the line in the liner notes is right, or it's what I've always believed to be right. And so he looks at the liner notes and goes, well, these are wrong, and throws it away. I love that. Just throwing that out there. Thomas Bishop, they are paid for a job in its ancient history at this point. Both actors are more than... Well, I'm not going to say that, Thomas Bishop. They were underage. Like I said, my question isn't about this particular case. My question is about when something like this happens to one of these movies, right? When you find out that on some of these action movies, actors were staying awake for 36 hours so they could look as exhausted as their characters, and directors were letting them. When you find out that people aren't eating so that they can lose weight, or they're taking steroids so they can gain weight, and that they feel like they've been pressured into things or pushed around in things, does it affect your viewing of the medium? I think for me, it's a case-by-case situation. This Romeo and Juliet feels problematic for me, and I've seen this version. Right? You watch the first, Jay says, I watched the first Friday the 13th differently when I found out about the snake, right? I watch E.T. differently when I found out about how Drew Barrymore felt about E.T. It affects my thought because I know that this thing that traumatized me also traumatized them. What is our role? The question I keep asking, and I think I ask it probably every week in a different way on the show. What is our role in our knowledge as we consume media? What role does our knowledge play? Should we let the media stand on its own? Or should we take what we know into it? Should we take what we know about characters in the Marvel Universe into our viewing of Marvel Universe movies about those characters? Or should we leave it outside? Should we take what we know about an actor who has a drug problem into a movie that actor is starring in while they're in the throes of that drug problem? Or should we leave that outside? When we watch Batman The Dark Knight, should we think about what Heath Ledger was going through while he was making that movie? When we watch Stand By Me, should we think about River Phoenix or Corey Feldman or Corey Haim? I don't know the answer, and that's the thing I try so hard to decide in my own life, right? And I think I do think it's different based on the severity of the situation, right? I think the fact that I know more about Spider-Man than most average Marvel fans is something that I need to kind of leave at the door when I go see a Spider-Man movie. But I don't think that knowing how what Heath Ledger was going through while he was making The Dark Knight or making that movie is something you can leave behind. I don't think going into Black Panther Wakanda Forever, knowing what that cast was going through with COVID and all the political stuff that came with that movie and Chadwick Boseman's death and all of this kind of stuff can in any way be separated from that movie. What is the role of what we know in our consumption of media? That's my question. I want to leave you with that tonight. We'll pick it back up next week, maybe. Or if I wind up on another day this week, you'll see it on the social media if I'm going to be here. But what is our role of what we know in our consumption of media? All right, guys. Thanks for watching Hot Takes. Lars, man, I think it's good to enjoy the work for what it is and then maybe take a retrospective where you watch it through the informed lens. That's fair. I think it's a good idea. All right, guys. Like I said, I got to wrap up. We got to get out. But tomorrow, 5 o'clock, the Dan Wickline Show. 6 o'clock in stores this week. 7 o'clock, Minute to Skim It. 8 o'clock, Mint Hunter. 9:30, Country Roads. Wednesday, 5 o'clock, the Dan Wickline Show. 6 o'clock, Comic Collectibles with Rex and John. 8 o'clock, Pop Go the Writers. 9 o'clock, Wednesday Warriors. 10 o'clock, Henri. Thursday, 5 o'clock, the Dan Wickline Show. 6 o'clock, What's in the Box. 8 o'clock, Space Cadets. And then we'll have new shows starting there after that. Friday, we'll be back for the Original Art Experience and other shows on Friday. Nancy will be back hopefully on Friday from 9 to 11 with Friday Night Live. And we will see everybody later on this week on The Experience. Thanks for watching. Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere The Experience is all the time.